always the first thing for me is you have to sit down with the director and get a sense of what movie he's making. So I had a quick talk with Zack, and then I went out and started to do a bunch of little doodles, like this one.
So that's your first sketch?
Which I'm keeping really safely.
Yeah, I think this might be worth money one day, because it looks a lot like what I'm seeing behind me. I love that it's on a napkin.
Yeah.
Were you like in a restaurant or something?
I was at a coffee shop.
No way.
Yes. I mean, it's important to get somewhere very quickly. The director looks at this, says, you know, I get it, that's cool.
Basically, my role in this was to take Patrick's original vision, the original sketch, and bring it to a realization. I think first and foremost, with any car, with establish a stance, which Patrick did, you know, from day one. You can see how the rear end is way much higher than the front end, and this gives it the aggressive and intimidating first impression.
What I was able to do was extract Ed's 3D model and bring it into my software, and then start checking for any problems that might occur.
With some math and some science, you could actually predict how it's going to work somewhat.
Yeah, you could do full compression on the shocks.
No way.
And then turn the wheel and recognize if there's going to be an issue with the hood.
We actually took a little trip to the Warner Brothers Museum and see the other Batmobiles, just seeing how ours would differ.
Some of the key elements are obviously power. We want to have a bunch of horsepower, so it was about 550. Placement was a big factor with this car. Obviously, you look at the car, there's no room for an engine in the front. You can't have a motor hanging out the back, so the motor is actually behind the driver's compartment, mounted backwards.
The motor's flipped around.
Motor's flipped around, exactly. We use what's basically a monster truck transfer case, a gigantic 4-gear hunk of aluminum that sits right behind the passenger seat that redirects the power back to a rear end, which is another task because the ring gear has to rotate different directions. You know, so there's a lot involved in putting that thing together. Mainly, we're just looking at how it handles, how the shocks work, how the tires react to bumps. And one of the first things that we learned watching with our suspension cam that, you know, it had some wheel hop.
How do you figure out what's causing the wheel hop?
Well, it was a combination of things. One, we had to add more valve into the shock. There is some external adjustment in the shock that we could do right there at the test session. There's basically bypass tubes where you can limit the oil flow. That helped, so we knew that we were on the right path. And then the other thing that was really fighting us was just the sheer weight of these tires. This is before we actually cut rubber off of them.
Give me some perspective, like, what do these tires weigh before you cut the rubber off?
500 pounds a corner.
Yeah. 500 pounds?
Wheel and tire, yeah. Very heavy.
A tire?
And it's unsprung weight, so.
Yeah, it's massive, massive amounts. I mean, the wheels are quarter-inch thick steel.
So when you cut that rubber off?
Yeah, we dropped 150 pounds or so, you know, from one of the rear tires. And that made a huge difference, adding about 60% more valving to the shocks internally, fixed the problem.
What did the day 2 testing consist of?
Well, this was a pretty big moment because this is the primary body piece that's basically been installed in this car. So you're starting to get a feel for what this thing's going to look like.
That was a big moment for me.
It really was, yeah.
You kind of started feeling the scale of it.
And this was really just such a plus for us all the way around, was to be able to have this time at the Chrysler Proving Grounds in Detroit. This is when the car really just starts looking so cool. I mean, and this is Mike Justice behind the wheel, you know, coming through cones, and this was basically mimicking roads in Detroit that we'd be filming on later. So Tim would set it up, he would time him, he'd come through those cones, and you know, obviously if he hit a cone on the Proving Grounds, he was hitting a wall somewhere downtown Detroit. Tim Rigby, he recorded all the data. Every time we went out, he would record pressure in each airbag, tire pressure, brake system pressure, temperatures, everything. So there was a constant log. And you can see a couple of those shots coming out of how the car just reacts and suspension works, and you can see him, you know, doing a little S-turn and correcting. You know, I think that's what really made the whole project such a success.
When we talked with Zack, he said, the machine gun, I want it to be out. He wanted to see it all the time. Plate that would have been replaced, and this is a typical.
So this is like a repair job.
Yeah.
Now, this particular detail on the hood, it's a way of introducing the Bat motif without being so literal like the previous, you know, Batmobiles, and we're using like negative space to create that. Inspired by American muscle cars.
Yeah.
You know, Hemi Cuda, like 66 GTO.
It's basically a one-off airbag over a bypass shock system, so we can alter the ride height on the fly while the car's in motion. The car weighs 8,500 pounds. We need a tremendous braking power. Brembo was kind enough to step up and build some 8-piston calipers for us, some gigantic rotors, ton of steering angle on the thing, you know, so you can recover from any situation you might get yourself into. It has about 2 feet of front suspension travel.
2 feet of travel?
2 feet of travel, yeah. They're gigantic front A-arms. So like I said, it's all built with the same theory that you would build a race car.